Welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen. I am AJ47 from Soul Mavericks Crew. In today's tutorial, we're going to be focusing on making you stronger. I wanted to highlight some ways that you guys can use the base freeze, for example, baby freeze, to condition your body for power. Now check it out, the baby freeze is drastically overlooked, especially when you're learning the base level power. Now I'm not just talking about holding a simple baby freeze, I'm talking about the ways that we can get into the baby freeze from different positions, how we'll transition between power moves using or utilizing the baby freeze. So stick with me on this video, guys, trust me, these exercises, these drills do help you get stronger, and they're always recommended for someone who's been injured and now recovered. Keyword now recovered. I believe I've said it before in other videos that your freezes are going to be the key to your power moves, okay? So you want to take your freezes serious, and in my opinion, I see freezes really glossed over, especially when people are starting out. They sort of learn the baby freeze and boom, okay, I got the baby freeze, and then they'll move on and start collecting other things. But there's other levels to having a baby freeze. There's different ways of mastery to do it. Like, can you do it from the front squat? Can you do it from a sweeping motion? So first of all, we have the front squat, the baby freeze from the front squat position. This is probably the most basic, but I believe the most transferable into your actual breaking. You can do this by locking your support elbow into this groove here inside your knee. See that? That's where the elbow goes. Palm stays slightly facing outwards, grip the floor, press down. And then we can begin to lower our top half down, counterbalancing like a seesaw. Remember to practice changing shapes with your legs. There you go, boom, fresh. I've also made another tutorial really going over the baby freeze. There's a white card at the top here. Click that and that will redirect you to that video, which should help you out with learning the base baby freeze. Learn that one first, and then this one should be relatively easy to sort of just go, okay, that makes sense. I would advise learning this on both sides. It just helps with all around base level strength. For the slightly harder moves, okay, granted you don't have to sort of learn everything on both sides, although it does help. I don't have absolutely everything on both sides, but I at least have my base moves on both sides. Next up is the baby freeze without the head on the floor. Now this is going to build up so much control around the shoulder areas, the bicep, the tricep, because you're having to balance your anchor point of your head is not on the floor anymore. So you're really starting to rely on all of these muscles here, and it's going to build a massive amount of control, especially when you're doing this 4 to 5 times a week. You don't have to do it for ages, but I want you to kind of think in the approach of when it starts feeling comfortable, natural, easy. That's what you're always going for in breaking, is when it starts to feel easy, that's when you kind of got it. Again, I would learn this one on both sides. You can learn it by lowering yourself in and not putting your head on the floor, but I would also encourage you to learn on both sides. Again, is placing your head actually on the floor and then lifting your head up, balancing, showing that you have control to yourself, and then lowering yourself back down and repeating, going up and down, balanced. Next up, we have the cradle. The cradle is a really good base move as well. It's basically a baby freeze, but if it's on your master side, then your master hand goes out to the side. If it's on the support side, then your support hand goes out to the side. Either way, it's going to be challenging on both sides, so I definitely recommend it on both sides because the balance and the strength is going to feel different on either side. So for example, my left hand is my strong hand, so my control and balance is going to move to the support hand as I switch. When I'm on this side, however, this is my master hand. So this hand aids to be switching to this side. It is an interesting sort of dynamic when you're learning how to do this and learning how to balance. It's even more interesting when you're learning to go from the cradle to the baby, to the cradle, back to the baby repeatedly. Trust me, when you start doing this, you're gonna feel your shoulders and your chest working. You're gonna feel it in your triceps and your fingers. Make sure you're pressing into the floor. That one's a really good exercise to try. And not only that, you're talking about the leg control, because when we're shifting shapes, we have to change shapes with our legs, as you can see here. Now pay attention to the legs, because the legs really do assist me in shifting my weight from one position to the other. It's just as much about using your whole body rather than just your arms. And that's pretty much across the board for all of these transitions. Although once again, granted, today we're mainly focusing on the upper body and the baby freeze in particular. But of course, naturally, when you consider power, much of it is your base control, which is gonna be your shoulders and your arms, your hands. But much of the technique and the weight distribution comes from how you use your hips. So it comes from the swing, it comes from the power from the hips. In case the next bunch of exercises are too difficult for you, now you can start trying to incorporate the baby freeze and the cradle into your breaking. You can do this with a simple old school style thread. From the front squat, you place one hand on one knee and you thread through, lock your elbow into the groove here, and then you thread. Next up, we have the lowering down position. As you can see here, I'm lowering myself down and then I gradually start lowering myself down from a higher position each time. This is really recommended. This is so useful and you're gonna build up so much strength, especially in the tricep and just the control. A lot of my moves where I will jump into a freeze come from literally learning how to lower myself down very slowly. I would do this almost every day I went to training, really slowly lowering myself down, and eventually it does get easier. The more focused you are, the more disciplined you are on that particular thing, the faster you're going to increase in that. Don't jump the gun by jumping into the freeze and not really testing it out. Really test it out in micro levels. So micro level testing, okay? And this way you'll ensure that you are building strength. You'll get a more realistic understanding of how much control you have built, and best of all, you won't get injured. Make sense? I hope so. So when we start entering the baby freeze from higher levels of position, there's, well, two basic things that come into account. One is the lowering down and the strength process, and the second part is the position of the hips and how you swing the hips when you swing the hips. One needs to be cocked backwards, so usually the same leg as the master arm that you're going to be stabbing with, to then swing through to alleviate the stress of lowering down. Now everything we've done up until this point has all been like this, pushing or lowering down. Next we're going to try rolling back. In this position we're using a completely different set of muscles, a different technique. You should be able to do a backwards roly-poly first without hurting yourself quite comfortably. You really need at this point to have a strong baby freeze before even attempting this. Otherwise, if your hands don't have enough strength to push, then you can put a lot of pressure on your neck unnecessarily. Most of the weight is supposed to be alleviated from the push in the hands and the pop in the hips at the same time, at the exact same time, and that way there's no stress on the neck. So don't try this if you haven't mastered everything else previously. And if you saw my last video on the press freeze conditioning, I'm basically taking the jab freeze or the stab freeze, placing it in my stomach and balancing one-handed. I want you to try and learn this on both sides, and if you have acquired that move already from when I've done my crickets tutorial and I've done my press freeze conditioning tutorial, which was the last video, now I want you to try and start shifting from side to side. If you can shift from side to side, shift from freeze to freeze, this is really going to start getting you used to something like turtles. Okay, once you've got turtles, it's a good base freeze. Again, lots of conditioning, coordination and timing. It's one of the fundamentals for the float style power move. If you're interested in acquiring power moves, there's a whole ocean of power moves within that float category that your body would benefit from by training these freezes. Okay, and lastly, you can see me switching different shapes from the same side position as the baby freeze, from the baby freeze to the straight-legged shape to the wide open shape, which you'd probably would be more familiar to you with power, and then a bunch of other shapes. Okay, these will all help because they all incorporate different parts of the body, different muscles. It's all good for great conditioning, and you should be really comfortable holding all of these freezes. Once you are super comfortable with these freezes, it's then much easier to then progress and to train power moves. And you have to bear in mind, guys, like these freezes are not going to promise you power moves, okay? They're not going to promise you every power move in the book. Each power move comes with its own respect. So that means it comes with its own technique, its own trials and tribulations. There's no better conditioning exercise than the exercise itself. So if you want to learn flair, the best way to learn flair is to practice a flair. And the best way to learn a windmill is to practice the windmill. However, because the windmill, for example, incorporates the baby freeze, it makes it a much easier time to master and control the baby freeze from almost any position, to prevent yourself from getting injured, to not make the legs or the hips or the groin overcompensate and then get a pull or a strain, which you really don't want, because when you're making so much momentum in your breaking and then you get a strain or a pull, you're looking at maybe 2 weeks to 2 months, maybe longer, depending on the injury, before you can train that move again. And in breaking, that time can feel like forever, and we don't want that. So I guess some final pointers when practicing this: your goal is comfortability. So for those of you that like reps and sets, especially from the baby freeze to the cradle, you can try 3 to 5 repetitions on each side. Alternatively, try each drill for 30 seconds, taking your time to go through the motions of the drill. drill. This way you don't have to concern yourself with numbers, but can instead focus on the actual technique of the drill. Once it feels comfortable, you've got it. And start playing with the different shapes. Maybe try go down to the elbow, try push up, try change the leg shape. It doesn't have to always be the same. Because at the end of the day, there are elements of workout within breaking, but you're still breaking, so it's still a dance. So still be as creative and playful with these exercise drills as much as you possibly can. Sometimes things can feel really awkward when you're doing them and you can't quite understand why, but if you film yourself and watch back your own video, it can really help you understand the technique or where the technique is missing. Because most of us with the human eye, we can kind of identify what's good form and what's not. We can go, okay, aesthetically that looks good, aesthetically that does not look good, okay? And sometimes when you do that and you watch back your own videos, you can really see in which areas and which ways you need to improve, whether it be technique or whether it just be completely strength based. Once you've made those assessments, you can take yourself back to the base level and go, do I need to go back to the beginning basic one and just stay here for a while? Or is it simply just the way I'm positioning my leg or the timing of it? There's loads of different variables, loads of things that don't come into consideration. That's why I would always advise you to watch the footage and review it. Another tip would be not to go to failure. If you go to failure, it's going to be significantly harder to get more volume in. I would advise you going to about 80% of what you know that your body can do. And I think most of us are quite hyper aware of our own bodies. Once you start feeling that fatigue and you're getting up to that 80%, just let it go. Just come down, have a rest, shake it out. And then that way you can get more volume in. If someone fatigues, like doing different free shapes from the first one, they're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer before they can start to play and get the same amount of numbers as someone who did 80% of what they can do, had a short rest, and then got back to doing another 80%, short rest, another 80%. I hope that one makes sense as well. All right, thank you very much for watching this tutorial, ladies and gentlemen. Leave a comment if you have any questions. There are many variables into conditioning your body from power. This is just pretty much using the baby freeze, but there's lots more that I can talk about regarding like the chair free shape, which helps for halo, or the leg positioning and the conditioning within the legs, which help you keep that wide split, not to mention the stretching side of things. So there's loads of different things that can go into, and obviously things change once you start to go upside down for power. So yeah, do let me know what you think in the video. Remember, if you would like to support the channel, there's ways you can do that, linked in the description down below. Like the video if you like the video. That's it from me, guys. Stay fresh, stay clean, and I'm gonna catch you on the next one.